Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for the opportunity to be reflecting and studying about Spiritism, which is a great joy to all of us. Our study will be based on the Spiritist codification, which is shown here with the pictures. It will be based mainly with the 5 books of the codification, and mainly with the Spirit's book and Heaven and Hell. And we will start the basic or the base of our study today to build our thought or our argument by thinking about the definition of a spirit. We understand in Spiritism that spirits are the intelligent beings of creation. Sometimes we might come across of the teaching or the understanding that some people were created good and some people were created bad. But in Spiritism, we understand that it's slightly different. We understand that God created us with the same starting point, which we say is simple and ignorant. Ignorant, lacking knowledge. Simple in the same way. And we are all invited to evolve with our own effort. We understand that as immortal spirits, we had a beginning, but we have no end, and our path of evolution will depend on our own efforts to overcome our bad tendencies and to let all the virtues that we bring within, the laws of God that we bring within in our conscience, to blossom by our efforts on practicing the virtues that we learn about in the whole of the codification, as patience, respect, tolerance. So we understand that we are all intelligent beings. And to help us to understand more about us and our different levels of evolution, it is also asked for the spirits if we were created good or bad by nature, as we touched briefly on the previous slide. And we learned that we were created, like we mentioned before, simple and ignorant, with the aim to improve ourselves. And we understand that the time we have here on planet Earth is a gift from God, where we can work on our awakening or on our development. We can work on the development of our multiple intelligences, be it the intellectual intelligence, moral intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. As immortal spirits, the invitation for us is always to become a better person, is always to find out what could I do different, what is the aptitude that I don't have and I would like to develop. And we see that we have all this time here on earth as incarnate spirits that we can use to work on and progress and advance, overcoming our obstacles. Knowing about our limitations, but working on overcoming them. And to help us to understand about what limitations we may bring and what could be the struggles we may face when thinking about them and trying to overcome them, Kardec, with the help of the Immortal Spirits who helped him to create the Spiritist codification, created what we call the Spiritist hierarchy, which is like a set of orders of spirits with 10 classes that helps us to think about our level of evolution, our characteristics, and where and place ourselves in there to help us to move forward and to work on our evolution. So it is presented to us according to the general characteristics of the spirits, remembering that spirits could be us incarnate in the flesh, and all of us who are outside the flesh in the spirit world, waiting for another existence in the errant state. So these 3 orders helps us to understand where we are. So we've got the first order at the very top of the classification, which are those who already reached a state of perfection. And we have, as an example, Jesus. We have the second order, which is a sort of obviously middle of the scale, when we have like a state of evolution where we already know that the main purpose of the reincarnation is to do good to ourselves and to others. And at the very bottom of the scale, we've got the third order, which is us, and the very beginning of our process of evolution, where we're very concerned about our material needs. We could be very concerned, for example, with vengeance, not really taking into the consideration other people's feelings or rights. And Kardec created this classification based on the degree of the development of the spirit, the qualities they have acquired, and the imperfections from which they have not yet freed themselves. We can have very good examples of this classification when studying the book Heaven and Hell, where Kardec divided chapters with different communications with different spirits from different levels of evolution. When we reflect about what is told to us, how they felt once leaving the physical body, what their situation was, it then helped Kardec to create the classification. A very interesting example is one of these spirits. We could say it was kind of neutral to good spirit, which is Joseph Brie. He lived according to all the laws of society, but once back into the spiritual world, he realized there was room for improvement, and there was lots more he could have done as a mortal spirit to their degree of development. So in learning and studying about this spirit hierarchy, we can truly understand what it means for us as immortal spirits to truly develop and grow. And again, just to illustrate the Spiritist hierarchy, we can see at the very bottom of the classification imperfect spirits and what are its characteristics. So it is imperfect spirits can be characterized by this very concern about matter and lack of concern as well for the moral side of decisions. For example, when we are at this stage, we are very inclined towards wrongfulness, dishonesty, for example, irresponsibility. We don't really take into consideration other people's feelings or rights as immortal spirits. At the bottom of at the middle of the hierarchy, we can find the good spirits, where we can start to see signs of evolution, where we see that the spirit predominates matter, as we understand that the matter is the instrument of the spirit. The matter is what the spirit uses to progress. And when we are at this stage as good spirits, we start to understand that and act more in accordance to it. And we are always oriented toward goodness. We are always concerned for other people's well-being. We are always, for example, concerned with the environment, and with our own self-improvement. And at the very top of the hierarchy, we see the pure spirits, which is the highest degree of purification. And the best example we have here on planet Earth is Jesus, who came to teach us the way to God, who came to teach us that once we are in tune with the laws of God, this is when we reach a relative perfection that we are all invited to reach at a certain point. And just to clarify and to remember that we are all spirits in evolution, and this classification is no mean absolute. We cannot just fit one box. We might have traits or characteristics in this existence from all the orders, because we are in the way to self-improvement. And the purpose of this classification is not to just be judging us, is to help us to see our limitations, see where we can improve, and make an effort to become a better person. And also can be used in mediumship meetings to help to classify the communications we receive from the spirits, for us to reflect on the advice that's given to us, on the communications that has been that happened during the meetings, to help us to see what the spirits communicated in the meeting. And for us to go now, we will go over all the classes. There are 10 classes within the 3 orders. We will start at the very bottom when we saw the inferior spirits, the 3rd class. And the 10th class is when we are at the very beginning of our spiritual evolution, when matter has a great influence over us, and our main concern could be to be involved in destruction, or could be involved in let's say choices that won't make us happy. We are not very concerned with our language or with the advice we give. We could be involved in a lot of gossiping, inciting fights, distrust. We could be very manipulative. We could also be targeting people that we see as weak, and obviously influence them in a way that will get them in trouble. And we have a very, very based language, which shows no sign of intellectual or moral superiority. So we could say that when we are at this class and we are analyzing communications from spirits, we could say that we are at the very beginning of our evolution process. We've got the 9th class, which Kardec called frivolous spirits, which is when we've got spirits who are very involved in mocking, thoughtfulness, very ignorant, meddle in everything, answer every question without thinking if it's what I'm saying is the truth or not. Just say it without reflection. Enjoy being annoying. We could even consider this an example of this as when we choose to be bullies. Those bullies behavior, not very involved or concerned with the moral and intellectual development, and also can easily be dishonest, assume different identities, different names, be meddled with dishonest processes. And we've got as the 8th class the pseudo-learned spirits, which is when we manage to work on our intellectual evolution a bit, but because we still possess a lot of pride and selfishness, we sometimes pretend that we know a bit more than we actually do. And because obviously the knowledge is not there, we might engage in very violent communication, very authoritative, just to make sure that we are heard. We want to make a point, but because we don't have the knowledge and the true authority, which is the moral authority, we might engage in conversations in a very aggressive way. Sometimes because we already developed a little bit intellectually, we might mix some truths with errors, because obviously there is the lack of knowledge and we're just pretending to be or to know something that we don't. And at this level of evolution, as spirits, we are still very attached to matter, and we still have a lot of pride, and as I said previously, in selfishness. We've got the 7th class, which are the neutral spirits. This is what we say sometimes when we are on the wall. We don't decide. We are not actively working and engaged with our evolution. We are not worried or concerned in hurting people or committing like bad actions, but at the same time we might know our limitations, know what we need to work on, but not be engaged in becoming a better person. This class is also characterized by a lot of attachment to matter and to pleasures, and we could say that this is when we are in a kind of stationary phase. We're not actively engaged, we're just stationary. But we understand that progress is inevitable, and even if we want to choose to be stationary, life will somehow, one way or another, invite us to move on. Experiences will happen to help us to awake from this state of mind, to help us to actively engage with our evolution. We've got the 6th class, which is this disturbing spirits, and it is characterized by and during the mediumship meetings, it was characterized by the physical effects, manifestation with the physical effects, the noises, the movement of objects, movements, for example, of curtains, that Kardec clearly states at the medium's book. These spirits, sometimes they help the immortal spirits more evolved to help us to perceive the spiritual world with those manifestations. But we could also say that it could be all of us when we are too noisy, too disrespectful in places where we are invited to show a certain level of respect. We've got the 5th class, which is now the 2nd order, for the benevolent spirits. They are the spirits who developed more the moral aspects or the moral intelligence. They display a lot of kindness, they help humanity a lot, they take pleasure in serving others. Their knowledge is limited, but they have advanced quite a lot morally. And we have on the 4th class the learned spirits, which are those of us who focused more on the intellectual development, but at the same time we help humanity to progress with our discoveries, with civilization. It also brings progress to humanity. Those 2 orders, the 5th and the 4th, they belong to the 2nd class, which is the good spirits. We also have the 3rd class, which we call the wise spirits. It is when we achieved a very high moral qualities. We are not yet in a perfect relative perfection as Jesus, but we've worked on our intellectual progress as well as on our moral progress. We display that, we can see that with a lot of philosophers that came to humanity to help us to develop our thoughts. And when we are on this stage, we display a concern for our fellow human beings. We also display a lot of intellectual knowledge. And we also have the 2nd class, which is the high order spirits, which usually helps us with our reincarnation process, help us including to plan our reincarnation. And at this stage of our evolution, it is when we worked really hard on various aspects. We display and combine science, wisdom, and goodness. We worked on our language. We are able to talk and help people through our talking as well. We are always seeking to become a better person. We are not motivated when engaging with our moral development. We're not just motivated by curiosity. And when we reincarnate, when we're back in reincarnation, it is usually a mission to help the planet to evolve and to help humanity to evolve and to become a better place. We've got also at the very top the perfect spirits, the first and only class, which we said the example is Jesus. Jesus is the example of this class. He have passed through all the degrees of the hierarchy, and we are freed from all the material influence. When we get to this point is what we call the relative perfection. We no longer need to undergo trials or expiations when we reincarnate. We are at this stage, we are in tune with the laws of God. We live through them. It is when, for example, we live patience at its highest. We live all the virtues that at the moment we are invited to learn about. Our main concern is assisting other people, encouraging them when they go through their own evolution process, helping them to become a better person, sharing the experiences we had. But I think the main point of this class is that they are in tune, totally in tune with the laws of God. And to help us, obviously, the happiness of those classes, the happiness that the spirit achieve at the very top of those classes, it's something that we all aim for. And to help us to think about, okay, there is this hierarchy with all the classes that we aim for to go through and evolve. But how do we evolve? How does it happen? And we saw that we have not been created good or bad. So we know that we will have many opportunities of evolve, not just this existence. Our fate is not consumed in one existence. We learn with Spiritism that we have plenty of opportunities to get better. And we also learn that we cannot learn everything in one existence. So we learn that we mentioned before, we start off in the point that we are created simple and ignorant, no knowledge, and we learn with a set of skills to acquire, which we can succeed at or not, depending of our effort, depending of the effort we put on. We understand that the reincarnation is an opportunity of enlightenment and progress, to become closer to God, to know more about His laws, and to evolve. And what will helps us to evolve quicker will be to accepting the experiences that happen to us, thinking, okay, what can I do to make it better or to resolve this problem? Because we also understanding that complaining and inertia can delay our evolution, delay our process. And obviously, it is very clear here that although we are immortal spirits with limited free will because of our level of evolution, our development, our advancement towards the laws of God, depends on us. The amount we saw previously that time is a gift that God gives to us to help us to become better, and it depends the time that it will take for us to evolve. It depends on us and our submission to God's wills. We will always, every time we are born in a new existence, we have a plan beforehand for us to commit and follow through to help us to evolve. But for this plan to happen, it has to have our participation. So it will depend on us. The time it will take for us to learn something or to become better at something, it depends on our own effort. But at the same time, we might think, okay, But can we regress? Can I, if I am unsuccessful in an experience, does that mean that I am regressing? And we understand with Spiritism that it doesn't happen this way. Every single effort we make to conquer something or to learn something is not lost. We may be stationary, but never regress. We also touched upon it before. We may come on a state of mind and actions as well, where we might be like a neutral spirit, not actively involved with our progress for some reason, but we are not regressing. Once we acquire something, which is also motivates us, because what all the efforts we make, it will never be lost. But we could come to a point where we'll be stationary, and we learn that inertia is quite powerful. So it's important for us to learn to self-motivate, to carry on, to renew our goals, to think of us as immortal spirits in constant learning. And we can also reflect, okay, if learning happens through understanding the laws of God and improving my understanding of them, are we all created equal in regards to intellectual faculties? And we understanding that, as we said before, we are all created equal. We all had the same starting point, but as well as the moral faculties, the intellectual faculties we develop through time with our own effort. We saw as well classes of spirits who are more evolved intellectually than morally, and others who are more evolved morally than intellectually. So every single skill that we have, it was conquered by us through our effort. There is a justice. We understand there is always justice in the laws of God. God created us all equal with the same potentialities to grow and to learn. So if we progressed intellectually, it was through our own effort. And while we will evolve, we will learn, this will happen, sometimes regardless of us wanting it to happen or not. There is also some clarification or some teachings as well of our choice of trials, of our choice when we start a new reincarnation as immortal spirits. And Kardec asked the spirits, while in the errant state, an errant state being the state where we are back in the spiritual world between reincarnations, where we just finished one reincarnation and we are back to get ready for the next one. While on this state, do we know what will happen to us in our new lifetime? And we learn that this time, this errant state, is the time we have to think about, to make an assessment of our previous reincarnation and to plan our new reincarnation. We will have a choice. It will be presented to us choices about what to do, what sort of experiences we can choose to go through, and this is free. We are free to choose what we would like to get better at, and this is the time we have to plan. And also thinking about, yes, we can choose the kind of trials we'll go through, but are we also able to choose every single circumstance of life? Is every single thing that will happen to us foreseen by us? And we understand that in all of them, because a lot of what will happen in our life, in our current existence, will be due to the choices we make. Yes, there is a certain topic of trials, if I could put it this way, your choice of trials that we'll go through, the nature of the trials, but the circumstances and every single details, it will be depending on our choices, depending on our action. And there is an example, question 259 of the Spirit's book. For example, I can choose, if I have a certain vice, I can choose to be born among those who have the same vice. But the invitation for me is to overcome it using my free will, choosing a different path than to just succumb and continue to have the same limitations and the same vices. Continue to thinking about our evolution and choice of trials. We could also reflect on the question, would we, as immortal spirits concerned with our evolution, make the choice to be born among people who make the choices that we bring within the same, let's say, the similar limitations? We could say that sometimes, yes, we can request as a trial or an expiation, as we mentioned on the previous slide, to be sent into an environment where I can be in contact constantly with the same limitations I bring within. And we may make this choice just to test us or to create the strength to overcome our limitations, or to challenge ourselves and to grow as immortal spirit. So all these struggles I bring within, they will attract experiences that will help me to grow. To continue our reflections on the choice of trials, on question 262 of the Spirit's book, Kardec asked the spirits, what would happen to us, thinking that we are simple and ignorant at the very, very early stages of our evolution, when we are not morally or intellectually evolved. What does it happen in regards to the reincarnation planning? Are we able to make our choices, to plan our reincarnation, think about the trials we want to go through to evolve consciously? And it is explained to us that God compensates for our lack of experience, for our lack of knowledge. We understand that there are spirits who are much more evolved than us, who will assist us in planning our reincarnation, highlighting options for us to choose from, or even choosing for us when we are not capable to, helping us with a reincarnation plan would help us to advance in our evolution. Obviously, the more we evolve, the more we get better with our development, the more free will we will have to make those choices ourselves. But we are never alone, and will always be assisted in our path of evolution by those who are ahead of us. There will always be help available in all the choices and all the experiences that we have to go through. We're never alone, we always have help. And moving on now to question 264, also we were thinking about, okay, we learned that we sometimes, depending on our level of evolution, we are able to make the choices of the trials will help us to evolve by ourselves. Sometimes we are helped by the other spirits who are ahead of us. But what guides us in making our choices? What is the reference we use when we plan our reincarnation? And it's clearly stated that we will choose what will, depending on what we have done wrong, and we need to some sort of reconciliations with other people that we may need, or all the experiences that we need redoing. This is what all the wrongs we did and all the limitations we have, this is what will help us in our choices. What experiences might enable us to evolve quickly. If I find, for example, that I am impatient, I might choose an existence where I will be constantly tested in this virtue to help me to develop it quicker. If I am, for some reason, did something to someone and I want to redo the experience, to try to redo this relationship, I might choose to reincarnate alongside this person to make up for all the bad things I did. In the same way, we also, when we reincarnate, we also are surrounded by our loved ones, which helps us to go through all the experiences we go through. We have gone through few points now. We started by thinking and reflecting of us as immortal spirits, understanding that we were created simple and ignorant. We have reflected a bit on the Spiritist hierarchy, which helps us to understand the different levels of evolution that we as immortal spirits go through. We went through all the classes, all the order, the 10 classes and the 3 orders. We had a little discussion as well about what is the best way to plan our reincarnation and the impact that it has on us as immortal spirits. But we might be thinking, okay, it's all theory. We have this theory, we know there is a plan, but is it possible as immortal spirits, do we bring the strength within to put all this plan in practice? Are we able to really, with our own effort, to practice or to act to overcome all our limitations? And there is an interesting question on the Spirits book 909, where Kardec asked the spirits if we during our reincarnation would be able to overcome our bad tendencies with using our own effort. And we are told that yes, and sometimes with not a lot of effort. What we are not thinking too much about is our willpower, using our free will with responsibility. So it's very interesting point for us to think about, and this is what we will be touching on now, the most effective way for us to evolve. And yes, we are able to, with our own efforts, educating our free will to evolve, to make good choices and move on. But we also might think, what is the most effective way in our life, in this existence for us to, there will be a will, because every single behavior we have, we condition to behave this way, we are wired to behave this way. And when we wish to make a change or start new movements to make a change, there might be some resistance from within ourselves for this change to happen. So what is the most effective way for us to materialize all those changes that we really wish to make? And it's a very short answer, but very powerful one. And it says, knowing ourselves. Sometimes we might come across some information regarding choices we make, the way we act, that we not feel very comfortable in being in contact with. But the best way, according to the spirits and the Spiritist codification, for us to be able to leave this place of suffering that we are now, to move on to a better place, to evolve and to change, is to know and accept the limitations we bring within, knowing ourselves, and know also what we already conquered in terms of knowing our strengths and our weaknesses, and working on them, working on our progress according to them. Carry on as well. We might think, okay, we know that the most effective way is to know our limitations, know ourselves, but how can we do that? How can we come in contact with all this information? And it is suggested to us in a question 919, St. Augustine, and it's very, very interesting and very practical for us. It's a very practical exercise when we are able to do it with humbleness, with honesty. And he says that at the end of the day, examine our conscience, reveal our actions, ask ourselves, did I fail to fulfill our duties, what we said we would do? Is there anyone who might have a reason to complain about us for our impatience or for about our intolerance? All those little points, or all this reflection that help us to know ourselves a bit better, will collaborate to our self-improvement. This is the path of self-acceptance. I know what I did. I will be held accountable. I am responsible for what I did, but I can also make a movement to change. And as well as knowing our limitations, making this movement, this self-assessment, we also have the help of the Immortal Spirits, who are always helping us in one way or another with our evolution, always suggesting good thoughts, always suggesting us to move on if we did something wrong, always help us to move on with our progress. And it's a very, very powerful tool, knowing that through our own effort, assisted by these benefactors, spiritual benefactors, we can make changes and make the most of our reincarnation. So coming to the end now of our meeting today, I wanted to bring an example of planning and reincarnation, just to illustrate everything that we have been discussing. We will be studying the book Missionaries of the Light, written by Chico Xavier and the spirit André Luiz, where we will learn about how three spirits, Sigismundo, Adelino, and Raquel, planned their reincarnation around choices they made in the past that impacted them all. So we learn here that the spirit in the book is Sigismundo. He had to go through a journey of learning and reparation due to his choices in the past, choices that impacted Adelino and Raquel greatly, and it was suggested to them to come back together in the same family, and they have agreed. Adelino and Raquel have agreed to have Sigismundo as their son. So we'll see a little bit about their story and how we can best use our time and our reincarnation to evolve and to learn. In the planning of Sigismundo's reincarnation, as we said before, presented in the book Missionaries of Light, it is presented to the three people involved in the situation, the opportunity through reincarnation to redo experiences and to try this time to build a relationship more in harmony with the laws of God. We understand that reincarnation is a blessed opportunity for us to make amends, to learn to love and respect one another. And we also learn that sometimes within the same family setting, there might be people who have gone through difficult experiences in the past, people that didn't really get along, people who had done or damaged each other in the past. So they come again together to try to redo all those experiences and build more harmonious relationships based on respect, on kindness, on fraternity. So God gave us this opportunity to come back in the same family to try to redo all the experiences that we didn't have success in the past. As it is presented to us in the book, Sigismundo was a violent person who in the past in other existence killed Adelino and left Raquel in desperate conditions, living conditions. Once they were all back to the spiritual world, they met again, and they decided they would come back to planet Earth, meet again, and try through reincarnation to reconciliate, to make up for all the wrongs they all did. We know, and we have discussed that before previously, that errant spirits, the spirit between reincarnations, when the spirit leave the flesh, go to the spiritual world, waiting to reincarnate again. When we are at this stage, we have greater, more knowledge about ourselves. We have access to past experiences. The knowledge about ourselves is greater than when we are reincarnated. We learn that when we reincarnate, we forget a lot of things that happen to us to help with our advancement. But when we are on this errant state, we can better plan our reincarnation. We can think better about everything we did and everything that we think we need to improve at. So after meeting back at the spiritual world, they realized everything that happened, and they decided they would come back again, try to make amends, try to live again, this time trying to help one another. It may sound very simple, but it's not very simple. There was a lot of work done for that to happen. And a few things are crucial and very important in the reincarnation planning, which we see here on the left, or on the process of reincarnation. There was something that really helped the whole process and the whole planning was acceptance and forgiveness, because as immortal spirits, we might hold on to hatred, we might hold on to vengeance for a long time, and that doesn't help the reincarnation process, because if we not, sometimes, not all the time, if we don't agree to certain plans, they can never happen. And our mental and emotional state also play a role in the whole of the planning. But because Adelino was capable of accepting the suggestion of the higher order spirits and working on his forgiveness, they were able to make such a plan for Sigismundo to come back as their son. And Raquel, the same. She was willing, and she accepted, forgave him, and they were all in agreement to move on and help each other. And this is a very, very good example as well of something else that we do talk a lot in Spiritism, which is the law of cause and effect, meaning that we will be held accountable for all the decisions we made, for all the wrongs we did, but in a sense that every good we choose to do, it is a meaning of us to overcoming our bad tendencies and overcoming all the negativity, let's say negative externality, if we could use this expression, that comes from the bad choices we make. So there will always need to have a willingness within ourselves to make up for the wrong we did by doing something good, by changing, showing forgiveness, as is shown here, showing honesty and willingness to remake relationships and to work on our transformation, on the changing within and repairing all of our past actions. And for us to finish with a message of encouragement. This is from the book Heaven and Hell, which helps us to understand that there will always be an opportunity for us to redo experiences, to learn whatever it might be that we need to learn. And I will have a read just for us to finish. And practicing, as we said before in the previous slide, practicing the good in compensation for former evil is the way for us to move forward. If we have done anything wrong, the best way for us to compensate for that is to choose the pathway of goodness. examples as here that Kardec shows us: becoming humble if we have been proud, caring if we have been austere, charitable if we have been selfish, benevolent if we have been perverse, industrious or active in life if we had been lazy, useful if we had been useless, sensible if we had been self-indulgent. Them always being active in life and demonstrating a good example if we have been a bad one, and so on. So this is how the spirits progress, by taking advantage of its path. So we will finish now. Spiritism is a blessing of God in our life, and for us to understand it and to live according to what it proposes is very important for us to study as much as we can and to reflect on the studies to make the changes within. Hello everyone. Thank you for